We all know the nursery rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe, she gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. If you're a New Englander, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Lizzie Borden is an ingrained part of our society, and her house, or the family house, still stands in Fall River, Massachusetts today. The murders of Abby Borden and Andrew Borden are tragic. They were murdered in their family home, and Lizzie Borden found them. She found them on August 4th, 1892. Her father laid on the couch in the living room on his back with his head not there much anymore, and she found her stepmother in the guest room on the second floor behind the bed, laying face down with her head also not there. The murder weapon was an apparent hatchet or axe. They truly did not find it. There is a plausible hatchet that they found that is now staying in a historical museum in Massachusetts, but there's no saying if they actually found the murder weapon. But Lizzie Borden found her parents gruesomely murdered in her home, and she became suspect number one. Her alibi was not strong, and it was easy to pin the murders on her. She went to trial, which was as fair as it could be. Fortunately, she was found not guilty for the murders, but it was purely because she was a woman. The jury was full of men who truly did not believe that a woman could cause such catastrophe. They didn't think a woman could murder like that, or at all. They didn't think she was strong enough. They didn't think she could do it. This jury of men declared her not guilty, and she was let go. Lizzie Borden lived quite a long life. She changed her name to Lizbeth because, you don't really want to be connected to that anymore. She lived a long life. She had a couple of dogs, and she passed away. But the murders still held a strong story in Fall River, Massachusetts. The house still stands in Fall River, Massachusetts. It is absolutely beautiful. It is considered a historical landmark for many reasons, and it is currently a bed and breakfast. So if you would like to go hang out where there was some tragic murders, you can. And I did. I wanted to. I have dreamt of this day since I was a child. The Lizzie Borden mystery has been in my head for years and years and years and years and years. And staying at that house has been on my bucket list. And I did it. And I plan on doing it again. But for my first time, I wanted to record this special occasion. I wanted to investigate every nook and cranny I could. And I did. I was up all night. I had pretty good access to the whole house throughout that night to investigate every floor. And it was great. The house is beautiful, it's well kept, it's stunning, and it's only a little scary. It is technically a museum, so the first floor has a lot of artifacts and you can look at everything. And that's what I kind of loved about it too, was that I was actively learning as I was hunting ghosts, and sign me up. But it is a beautiful home. I was able to meet some amazing people, and I enjoyed every moment out of it. The Lizzie Borden home is a strange makeup of rooms. It has 4 floors, including the basement, and it takes a little bit of a map to get around. There are multiple staircases to multiple different areas, and you have to know exactly where you want to go if you want to go there. I was staying in the Lizzie and Emma suite, which is Lizzie Borden and her sister's room, and thankfully, it was pretty easy to find my way there, but if you were staying in some of the other rooms, got a little tricky, honestly. But the house is beautiful. It has been kept up by some wonderful people. And while the furniture has been replaced, obviously, it is still pretty close to what it's supposed to look like way back when. The whole first floor is a museum, so it has artifacts, it has all sorts of educational pieces surrounding, and that's kind of the fun part for me. I wanted to learn and I wanted to ghost hunt, and I got both of those things. It was great. So when you do walk into the Lizzie Borden house, you are introduced to the parlor almost immediately. The parlor is stunning. It has chairs, it has lights, it has a piano. It's so pretty. I loved it. After that, you head into the living room. The living room, like I said, is where Andrew Borden was murdered. They conveniently have a mannequin to show you exactly that. And it is cool because it is a replica of the crime scene photo, and for someone like me who's fascinated about that stuff, it was neat to see. But it's also morbid, and you have to find a level of respect and curiosity, I guess, in this sort of situation. But the living room was stunning. It was decked out in Halloween in Christmas decorations because I went like a couple days after Christmas. It was so pretty. I loved it. I thought it was sweet that they decorated it. You head into the kitchen. It was pretty standard, nothing too special. After that, we headed into Lizzie and Emma's room, which is where I was staying. And I got a lot of footage in here just because this is where I was, biding my time. And it was beautiful. The furniture, the bedding, everything. It was stunning. I thought it was great. And the room is separated into two sections. So there's a smaller little room and then a big room. And it was said that Lizzie's part of the room was the smaller room and Emma's was the bigger room. And then Lizzie went off to Europe, bought a lot of stuff, came back, and she couldn't fit all her stuff into her tiny little room. So her and Emma decided that they would switch parts of the room. The large area ended up being Lizzie's at the end of the day. So that is where I slept. I didn't sleep in the little room. Connected to Lizzie and Emma's room is then Andrew and Abby's master bedroom, where there was another guest staying, and it was very pretty. I got a quick look into it before the guest came, and I quickly closed that door. But it was a very pretty room, and that's a room where it's connected to a different staircase, so you come in a different way through like the maid's quarters and everything. Very neat. I'm glad I didn't stay in that room because I think I'd get lost. After that is the guest room, which is promptly named the John Morse room because at the time of the murders, a family friend, John Morse, was staying in that room. And that is the room that Abby Borden was murdered in. So in this room, they also had a mannequin of her deceased body behind the bed, just like it looked in the crime scene photos. I got a closer video of it, which kind of scary. Like, they really decked out these doll mannequin things. I didn't expect that, so good for them. But still, you have to find that line of respect and curiosity, and it's kind of hard when you're staying in a murder house. But that room was pretty, had a lot of activity, so we'll get into that. After that, we headed up into the third floor, which was a smaller floor and filled with a handful of bedrooms, one of which was Bridget's bedroom. Bridget is the woman who took care of the house, was pretty much Borden's like maid and helper around the house. But her room was up here, which also had a lot of activity, whether it be her or anyone else that was in this area of the house. But the third floor was unoccupied by any guests, so during ghost hunting I was able to come up here and get a lot of evidence. Then the basement. The basement of the Lizzie Borden house is well known. This basement is creepy. This basement is, any other New England basement. If you live in New England and you own a house or live in a house, that basement is creepy. I currently live in a house that has a basement. I've been in this basement one time. I will not do it again. I don't have any reason to, but I will never do it again. Basements are creepy in New England because they're old and mucky, and this one was the same. It was creepy. It was decorated to be creepier, which was fine. But this basement has a lot of history that we'll get into later when we get back to the investigation. Now let's get to the part of the video that you're actually here to watch, the ghost hunt. And myself, this is why I came to. I think ghost hunting can be an extremely interesting activity. There are a lot of moments where I am pretty skeptical. I am very open to spirits and ghosts and everything of the sort, but I had to, get my bearings and be true to what I'm finding. And I won't just say that anything and everything is something. So the future evidence I'll say loosely, I'm going to show is up for debate. I'm just showing what I found, There's always room for discussion. But either way, the hunt was amazing. There was a general hunt between 10 and 12 with me and the others who stayed in this house and a few other people who came in specifically to do this hunt. It was around 12-ish people, and that's a lot. This house is small. Like, it's big, but it's also small because the rooms are weirdly architectured. So squishing 12 people into a house to all ghost hunt is crazy, in my opinion. You're going to get some weird results, you're going to get no results, you're going to get some angry ghosts because they're probably overwhelmed and exhausted and don't want to deal with this every single night. So That hunt went really interestingly, which was iffy. But then after that was the good stuff. Me and a couple of the other people who stayed there ended up going from 12 to around 5 for me, going out through the house and independently ghost hunting. And that is where a lot of the results you're going to see were from. It was amazing. I brought all my ghost hunting equipment. I did know that the Borden house itself would supply equipment, but I have my own. And while I did use some of theirs, I relied mostly on mine because I like mine. But I brought my digital camera, my thermal camera, 2 spirit boxes, which I recommend both. I like both. I owned the S box before the more iconic looking spirit box, but both do the same thing. It's just up to your preference. And then I brought my EMF detector, which doesn't look like your normal EMF detector. I bought a different kind. They all did the same thing though. But I brought all my equipment. I was ready to go, and we went ghost hunting. We started in the first floor, which has the living room, the parlor, the dining room, and the kitchen. But all of these are going to be from the living room. The living room is like where I said Andrew Borden was found and murdered. They have a convenient little mannequin set up to show that. And from what I can kind of gather from what was found, I believe this spirit might be Andrew, or at least a spirit who is like knowledgeable of what's going on. Just a general gist, I guess. So let me know what you think. Bloody?
Would you like me to get off the couch?
I do. The basement was next. The basement, like I said, was creepy. It had decor up. It was definitely just a New England basement. But I want to talk about it a little bit more. There have been 2 owners of the B&B. The current owners, who seem to be great, and the prior owners, who kind of took advantage of the house and its abilities. The prior owners created a space in the basement to do seances with a Ouija board, and is now a strict rule that if you stay at the Lizzie Borden house, you do not bring a Ouija board, which I advocate for. I do own Ouija boards, but they are strictly decoration. I think they are a little bit too unpredictable, and it makes sense that they don't want people bringing that. But either way, this basement was a place of many seances to many, many spirits, negative or positive. So anything that's down there in the house could really be the Bordens or any other spirit, which is fascinating to me. So you could be talking to anyone. They also claim that the first floor has a portal, which is a fair assumption, but again, you only know what you know. The basement is also the location of another murder. Way back when, the Borden family was a significant family in Massachusetts, specifically Fall River and the general area. Which means that next to the Borden house that we all know well, there was another house owned by another Borden family. They were the Bordens before Lizzie and Emma ever came to be. They were related to Andrew Borden, and they owned the house next to it. There was a tragedy in that house where the mother, Eliza Borden, ended up murdering her children. She killed 2 of them, 1 got away, and then she killed herself. She did this by throwing her children down a well that was in the basement. And that basement is very connected to the one in the Lizzie Borden home that we know today. So when you do go down to the Lizzie Borden basement, you are likely to face that spirit as well. Of course, there are stories of Eliza making patrons feel depressed, somber, shame, and I don't know if we found that, but we were able to find something. Additionally, I want to point out that the basement where the main sort of sitting area is right below where Andrew Borden was murdered. And there are blood stains in the beams on the ceiling that you can see, which was... But anyway, we were able to get some evidence back in the corner of the basement where Eliza and her children had passed away. We started getting some answers from who I might assume is Eliza.
Tragic.
Yeah. Are you content with what you did? Then during this time, we asked if she could say her kids' names. And I will admit, did not know the kids' names during the time. But we did get a response that is fairly similar to one of the kids' names. One of the daughters that she had murdered was named Eliza Ann. And I don't know, it sounds like Anne, but again, could be a stretch. You could remind us. We were down there for a while and we weren't really getting much, so we were trying to see if maybe they just did not want to talk. So they didn't. Are you sad? The next evidence you're going to see is from the third floor. This was all specifically taken within Bridget's room, the housemaid. This room was extremely active throughout the whole night. It was really interesting. I will say though, during the general 10 to 12 hunt, I can't say if the results we were getting were true. We got some evidence on the bell that they handed out, but I didn't really trust the bell fully. But it did go off simultaneously when the EMF blipped. So who knows?
Sound spiking when it goes up.
Of course, like any ghost hunt, you're gonna get some unclear responses. So I guessed. But also, what do you guys think these say? I think they're interesting. They were something, but who knows what they actually were. What did that just say? We had been hunting for a while and there had been multiple people in this house and they do it every single night. If you had to put on your smile every single night to adhere to some new ritual going on that you did not agree to, and you mayhaps have been murdered in this house, would you be extremely keen on doing it? No. So I think some of the spirits, whoever we were talking to, were, tired. Sleepy? Oh.
Too much?
Then, a really cool thing, we got some pretty clear responses in this room too. I must say the spirit box is my favorite piece of technology and tool to use during ghost hunts, so these responses were excellent.
Bridget?
Please help. Mom? And of course, you're going to get the clear and then unclear. So I heard words very distinctly, but then something would happen afterwards that also sounded like a word, and I couldn't figure out what it was, so here you go.
Bad?
Yep. Okay. Ooh. Sister? We also got some really good responses from the cat ball. So this is a piece of ghost hunting equipment that's a little, odd because it's a cat toy, but it works really well because it's really easy for spirits to maneuver. And I use it a lot of times for my dolls. So it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a little plastic ball with lights in it that will light up when it's touched or, played with at any capacity. So spirits are able to just sort of nudge it slightly and it'll go off. And it's great. I think it gives great evidence. So we had this cat ball in Bridget's room and we were getting responses with it. It was great. We got a couple that had voices before it and then movement. So I thought that was cool. Who is that? Then one really cool thing is that I listened to the footage that I got pretty closely to see if I could hear anything that was outside of the norm, and I did. This clip is kind of hard to figure out what it says exactly, but it is a very distinct whisper in our area. It wasn't the spirit box, it was a whisper in with us. So that was cool. The last room I'm going to show you guys is the John Morse room, which is the guest room, which is the room that Abby Borden was murdered in. This room got us a lot of stuff. This was my favorite room. This was the room where my new friends that I met stayed, and they had to kind of just exist alongside a Abby Borden mannequin, which was kind of funny. But this room was extremely interesting. We had a lot of stuff set up for them to use, the spirits, but ultimately we got a lot of spirit box responses, and I thought it was great. Like I said before, we got a lot of unclear ones that sounded like something, but I couldn't make them out. Ooh. Ooh. Just know you're here. On top of those, we got some odd and ends responses throughout the night, which were pretty interesting. Who's still here with us? I am. Hide. They're dead. Then at some point in the night, we started talking about Lizzie and Emma, just the family, the Borden family in general. And I'm not sure if I can say positively that this was Abby or Andrew in particular, but it did seem to correlate well with what we were talking about. So I would confidently at least say that these two next things were spoken about Lizzie and Emma, or one or the other, just about the Borden children. And I think it makes sense. Troubled. Ungrateful. We got some other responses too. Hurt me.
I'll come back.
We did it. Then this one's a bit hard to hear, but if you replay it, I think you'll get it. But this also sounded like a whisper in our area, not spirit box, just like in our realm. So I thought I caught something, so I'm gonna put it in just like whether or not it's correct or not. All of this is put in whether or not it's correct or not. It's just showing it off, I guess. But this was a whisper that I was unclear about.
It's like bubble, like it's underwater almost, like really deep and bubble.
Yeah. Then this is my favorite thing. We were still in the Abbey room, and we got a pretty good response, and we got an answer to that response afterwards. And whether they said it or not, whether it was actually what we heard or something completely different, I just think it was a really interesting short conversation we had with them. So let me know what you guys think. Did you just say the axe? You bet.
You bet.
The Lizzie Borden house is going to remain a mystery until the end of days. No one's going to know exactly what happened that day. And no one's going to know if Lizzie did it. No one's going to know if John Morse did it. No one's going to know who did it. The only people who know are murdered. And ghost hunters can go into this house day in and day out to try to get those answers, but I don't think we're going to. I don't think we're ever going to know for sure what happened, and that's just how it's going to be. But that mystery is going to continue to stay in my mind, and I do hope to come back to that house one day and do another ghost hunt. It was a genuinely very fun time. And whether you're skeptical or you think all these things are completely true, I think it's just interesting to consider it. All the evidence that I showed you guys today is gonna either be extremely cool to some of you or really not. I don't know, but I just think it's neat. I might have heard something wrong, so feel free to tell me if something doesn't sound like what I think it does. I'm open to interpretation. I have hours of film, but this was the stuff that I really wanted to pull out and show you guys. So I'm gonna keep ghost hunting. I'd really love to keep this up, make more videos about it, because I enjoy it and it's something that I just love doing. I think it's so fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was my first ever big video I'm making, so thank you guys for joining me, and let me know what you think happened at the Lizzie Borden house on August 4th, 1892.